This is Ian Rappaport from NFL Network. You're killing me, Smallz.
This is Bucky Brooks of the NFL Network. You're killing me, Smallz.
Hey, this is Chris Heck, president of the 76ers. I just want to say, you're killing me, Smallz.
Hey, this is former Sixer and Tar Heel George Lynch. Smallz, you're killing me.
Hi, this is Kenny Albert. You're killing me, Smallz.
You're killing me, Smallz.
I am your host, Mike Small. Welcome to the Killing Me Smallz podcast. You may have recognized that handsome devil in the opening, the very last one. It's the guy right next to me here, Keith Pompey, the great Sixers writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Philly.com. Has been covering the Sixers for a long time, does a great job. You know, Keith, we've been friends for, I guess, about 5 years now. And, you've gotten big time on me. I'll turn on NBA radio and I hear you on there. You know, I've seen you on I think CNN. I mean, you've come or TBS or TNT. You've become kind of a big deal. Welcome to the show.
No, thank you, but I'm still that same guy from Tacawanda Street, so it's all good.
What you were let me help you. What you were supposed to say is, I was small time till I started going on your podcast, and now. Are we gonna go with that?
That's what it is. Yeah,
all right, we'll go with
me,
that.
George Lynch, everyone else. Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Although the Chris Heck thing might need to be replaced, but he was a good guy. Keith, welcome to the show. Obviously, even though we are a week away from the NFL season, the Sixers always give us something to talk about. There's more drama with the Sixers than Knots Landing and General Hospital combined. You've been on this beat since the beginning of the process. All of a sudden, it's Christmas Day, and Woj drops that bomb that James Harden wants to go to Houston. Were you just like, oh my God, here we go again? What I got to know, when you saw that, what was your first thought?
I mean, initially it was, here we go again, right? And then the second thought was like, wow, James is really going to do this, like on Christmas Day, like right before they play, like not the nation, the world is watching this game.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was going to come to be to this magnitude, but it was like, this is typical of the things that have happened, since I've started covering the team in 2013.
I want to get into it a little bit more, but it does bring up, you do such a good job of finding out information. You're an old school journalist. You want to break stories. You follow the team. You're not just a PR agent. You're finding things out. What is it like when I was a reporter a long time ago, they didn't have Adrian Wojnarowski and Sham Charania breaking stuff on the team I'm covering. They're never there. Is that frustrating for you? I'm just curious what that's like, because that would drive me nuts.
It can be a little frustrating, but also you got to understand, it's kind of sort of, and this isn't a knock at Shams, it's not a knock at Woj. But when you used to cover it and other people, there are certain guys who beat the bushes and try to get stuff. And there are certain things that people don't want to give you, right? So you go ahead and you get it. So when you get that, you're still like elated that you broke a story. With Woj and Shams, it's kind of sort of, they're given a lot of things, more so like Woj than Shams. You know what I mean? It's like, kind of, it is what it is. It's one of those things where, Mike Smallz is trying to get that story, and then all of a sudden you get to the finish line, and next thing you know, Woj breaks it, and you get frustrated about it. But you also know that, he's a national guy. He has more Twitter followers. Sometimes they'll give it to him and team execs, because it's more of a one-stop shop. But at the same time, whenever you do get something, there's more you get a little you're satisfied, you're elated for yourself
Yeah.
because you put in the work. You put in more work than he had. And not to say that he didn't, but it's like one of those things. They work for ESPN, they work for where Sham worked for multiple publications. They have millions of Twitter followers. So where it's easy for them to just get a text message from someone or get a call, whereas you just have to, you have to bite the bullet with that.
Yep.
And you also, it just makes it more gratifying whenever you do get something. So initially there was frustration, but no, because you're playing, you have a different playing field. You're on a different, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if I think back to when I was in a role like yours, I would have gotten a call from my editor screaming, like, how did you let them beat you on this? And you're right. I heard one reporter almost call it like they're the journalistic mafia, where they can hold it over teams. Like, look, if somebody beats me to the story, I'm going to report whatever, so it's almost like these GMs and presidents, et cetera, need to keep those guys happy for some reason.
But I don't even consider it like, I mean, initially, okay, so when I had a couple people before I got on the beat, I had it kind of sort of like, dang, how did they beat you? And you got frustrated about it. But there's been times when I've been in certain places where, where they were. And I know that I was busting my tail, so to speak. And I look over and, like, let's say at the NBA draft, right? So here's my cell phone, right? So I'm like, I'm at the NBA draft, and then my cell phone buzzes. I'm like, and then you just broke something. And then you just chilling and everyone else is in, then you look at your cell phone again, and it's like, you just broke something else. So it's kind of sort of like, it's one of those things where, yeah, you get a little frustrated. Like I said, initially you did, but then you realize is like, you're not, it's an unleveled playing field. There's like landmines and on my field where theirs is like a downhill slope and people are just giving it to them. So, you're I mean, I think a lot of people know too, like now, initially they were like, what's going on? But I think they understand what's going on now. So it's to a point where, yeah, you want to beat them all the time. You want to get things, but you can't break your neck over getting stuff especially, when something is just given to someone. And if you know,
and like you said, it's so much more satisfying when you actually beat everybody to it.
Yeah.
No, that's it's interesting. You go through the whole Ben Simmons thing, and it was almost like a battle of which camp wants what out at what time, and everybody's negotiating in the media. And now it seems like that's what's happening again with James Harden. How do you think? I mean, I don't even care about how this started. I don't even care about what was promised, what wasn't. I don't even care if Daryl Morey's a liar or not. Like, I don't care. How do you, if you're handicapping this thing, how does this end?
I think it can end ugly. And the main
Uglier
thing
than it is now.
Yeah, I think it could get worse. Yeah. I mean, I think, the good thing about Ben Simmons was, and as much as everybody wanted to talk about how bad it was, Ben Simmons, for the most part, wasn't around the team. Like, he came around those 2 days and he practiced. He got kicked out of the second day. He would do workouts. He would do other things, but he wasn't there making a spectacle of the organization at practice, right? The unknown thing is with James Harden is, what is he going to do? And if James Harden says, I want to report to training camp, right, and I want to make a mockery of the team, it could get ugly for the Sixers. I mean, it really can. And how do I think it ends? I think that ultimately we see James Harden getting traded. I do, but it's weird. And here's the difference. And this is another thing. And I know this isn't a question you asked me, but James Harden has made over $300 million in basketball. He had successful business ventures, endorsements and whatnot. And I feel like a guy of that magnitude making so much money and has had so much power, a lot of times when you start saying stuff like, you got to do this, you got to do that, or you try to back them into a corner, it becomes personal. And he's not used to, because let's face it, a superstar in the NBA, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Kevin Durant, all these guys, James Harden, all these guys of those A-list calibers get whatever they want. And once you get to a certain status and someone says, no, you're going to do this and you're going to do that, it becomes personal. And that's the guy you got to worry about at times.
So I think I'm going to interrupt you right there, because I think you just hit the nail on the head. James Harden's used to being treated like an A-list, but he's really a B-list guy now, maybe a B+, but he's not an A-lister anymore. And I think that's where the disconnect is. And it makes me wonder,
True.
Somebody had to be able to tell him what his value was. He can't be this surprised. And if that's the case, why would he opt in? Was it ego that he had to get the 30-something million, or could he have just gone as a free agent, said, I'm going to take a mid-level exception with the Clippers, be where I want, and go win a championship? See, there's that balance of ego, not understanding your value, and not having people around you that tell you the truth, is the way I see it. Am I close in your opinion?
No, I think you're right on. I think two things that happened, right? When Joel Embiid, and the two different games, I should say, that happened. When Joel Embiid was injured, right, in the game one, and Harden had 45 points, won the game, had the game winner, right, and then he comes back, and I want to say it was game 4 where he had 42 points, right? So at that point, you're looking at it like, yo, I'm not the problem. Y'all saying I lost a step, but I'm out here balling. What are you talking about? Right? So I feel like, and then when you have that, you're right, somebody should tell them. But then you look at it and you say, hey, all I was doing was just sacrificing myself for the team. I still have it. So, yeah, I feel like, but that's the hard part. When you look in the mirror and feel like, and realize that you're not the same guy, right? Now, so that's it. Secondly, you are correct. I feel like, you look around and talk about the money. You look around and you say to yourself, man, if I opt out, if I want to go where I can go, if I opt out, I'm going to have to take a minimum salary or maybe a mid-level exception. I'm not a minimum salary or mid-level exception guy. So my value is up. So let me just take this money, because let's face it, money is also ego, right? Salary is also ego. I'm going to take this money and somebody is going to be willing to make a trade for me. Well, it didn't work out that way. But I feel like that's what it was, because if he would have opted out, yeah, he could have probably gone to a struggling team with a lot of cap space, maybe, right? Maybe someone trying to sell tickets and get them for like a 1-year rental or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you want to go to a legitimate contender, you don't want to go there and make $1.8 million or 2.8, whatever the minimum is for his age. So, but yeah, you're right. I think that sometimes you got to read the room. You got to understand what's going on around before you make that decision. Because, yes, he's going to get $35.6 million, but he also lost options and where he could go.
It's there's two sides to every story, right? So we're talking about I think most of the fans are thinking, are anti James Harden on this. He sucked in game 6 and 7. He wants his money. He's only picking one team he wants to go to. The other side of the argument is this. If I'm the Sixers, if I'm Daryl Morey, I'm looking at this as he could have opted out and gone right to and get a mid-level exception somewhere, and the Sixers could have gotten nothing. Now, if you get a couple of expirings and a couple of picks, you got to feel like you're ahead of the game. And I think what Morey, if he's made one mistake, and as a fan, you want him to try to get the best that he can. But I think he might be overplaying his hand at this point, because everybody knows that there isn't a big market for him, and that he could have got nothing. And I think holding out for a great player or a boatload of draft picks for an expiring 34-year-old guy who's lost a step is probably miscalculating a little bit. So look, instead of the league sending memos and pulling out the CBA and fining for calling someone a liar, I just don't understand why a players association doesn't sit down and arbitrate and say, look, he wants to go somewhere else. You could have got nothing. Let's come up with a value here. Clippers, you want to go there? Clippers, you can step up, whatever it is. It just feels like this needs divorce mediation as opposed to a full-scale public divorce. You know what I mean?
True. I mean, good. You get good. Good question and good observation. The thing that gets me is right now, I think with the league, when we're talking about the league and we're talking about player empowerment, right? So the thing that you are bringing up is, in a perfect world, it does work out. But it also looks like if you're the commissioner, if you're the NBA, even though they probably aren't going to admit this or anything like this, or they're going to deny it, like if someone asked them, it's one of those things where the players are getting whatever they want now. And if you have a mediation for a guy who wants to leave and go to the Clippers, then ultimately it's like, if I'm the next player, I'm going to say to myself, like, hey, I'm going to do what James Harden did. I mean, because when you think of this, you think what happened? So Ben Simmons held out because he did not want to be a 76er. So then next thing you know, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving say, I want out, and they get traded, right? James Harden, you could say years in the past, he had the fat suit. He did all, he was, this, and he did whatever he could to get out of places. Then this summer, not only him, but then you have Damian Lillard. So now people are looking at it like, now let's face it, part of the reason why a lot of these players have as much power as they do, more so than the coaches, more so than executives, is because they make so much money, and the ownership looks at it like, if I lose this guy, I have nothing. So the players have, I'm not saying taking advantage of it, but they took advantage of it, right? So now if you look at it with the whole James Harden situation, if you do that, or if you allow James to get what he wants, you can't get that back. I mean, you lost with Ben. As much as they say, Ben had lost some money out of it, he still never suited up for a Sixer. Kevin Durant and Kyrie and all these other people left. So it's a sticky situation. Now, the one thing I will say about Daryl, and I think it's starting to change now, just because no one thought it was going to get this bad, right? Because of their relationship. And what I mean by that is, initially, a lot of stuff that people aren't talking about is a lot of people, even if James opted out, there were a lot of people who were thinking, what's going to happen if they can't re-sign James Harden? There is nobody else on the market that's going to be to his level that's going to help them be a championship winner, right? So when he opted in, people were shocked. Now, the problem that the Sixers had at that particular time is we look at James and we say, James Harden is not going to win you a championship. You need another piece. But you also say, but if you lose James Harden, who's going to be the primary ball handler? Is Maxey going to be it? Are you going to have to get somebody else? And do you have someone that's capable enough to be an elite level ball handler to make sure Embiid and everybody else eats? So that's a question. Now, so when James opted in, it's kind of like, well, if you're Daryl Morey, you're saying to yourself, look, the pressure is on. We got rid of Doc Rivers. We got rid of all these other people. Now I got a new coach. I have to get out of the second round. I have to. Now, if I can trade James and I could get something that we deem of equal power, equal value, that's going to be great. Talking about an all-star type player. If not, I have a relationship with James. I know we can work this out, because guess what? It's like James staying here, at least having a great year, is going to help him out in the future, and he's going to make more money. But it just so happened that James, not saying went rogue, but James just doesn't want to be here. So that in lies the problem. But if you lost James Harden, that's the one thing people aren't talking about. Who's going to be the point guard or the elite level point guard? That was the dilemma that Daryl Morey had. Now you look at it and it's like, well, just get rid of them, get them out of here, because you don't want the headache. But at that time, back in June, the thought was, if we can't get anything of equal value, we'll have him come back. We'll run it back. Think about it. They felt like they were they were a quarter away in Game 6 from going to the Eastern Conference.
4 minutes, 4.5 minutes.
4.5 minutes, exactly. 4.5 minutes from going to the final. So you look at it, and all the blame went on Doc Rivers, right? The blame went on him, his coaching. Although James and Joel didn't perform well in the Game 7s, they didn't perform. James didn't perform in Game 6. But you look at him like, we have Nick Nurse, we have the coach, we're going to be able to do it. Now I have a hard time.
I was not a Doc Rivers fan.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time laying the blame on Doc Rivers with the way that those 2 games ended.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a great player, the coach doesn't matter. You're gonna not, both of them, Embiid and Harden, both of them have no excuse for that. And I think your insight is good. I think it was Mark Stein that reported this week that the Sixers are expecting Harden to come back. I'm sure that's posturing so that Harden's going to get more mad. And the question that I have for you is it Clippers or bust? Do you see another team getting involved? Do you see, if the Dame trade doesn't work out, could Miami get in the mix? Is there, I am on record the day of the Harden trade saying that it should have been Fox or Halliburton. That would have worked out a lot better, but revisionist history. But do you see another team getting involved, or do you think it's Clippers or bust, and you're looking at Nick Batum and, Norm Powell and a couple of crappy picks?
I think right now it's Clippers or Bucks, because, initially when it came out, the news came out, they were saying it was the Knicks, right? And you speak to sources up in, within the organization and all that, they're like, nah, they don't want them. Things like
Tom
that.
Thibodeau would kill him.
Yeah, exactly. It would kill him.
And so exposed her, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about James is the tricky part about James, there's a lot of different things that makes him tough for teams. Like, and where is it? A is his age, B is his salary, C is an expiring contract, right? D is he's not the player that he used to be, right? And E is like, some people like, how's he going to adjust in the locker room, even though everybody likes him? But the question is he going to be fully committed on and off the court, right? So I think that makes it a little tough for teams to do that. Now, the Clippers, a little bit of a veteran group, a place that he wants to go to, right? They'll take him, right? They'll take him to help out. But at the same time, other teams like, Portland or Miami, if they can't get Dame, I don't even know if James fits the culture for what the Miami Heat want. You know what I mean? And there's other teams. So, he's just a little bit older, and it's just a lot. Like, because if you're going to give up something for him, you better hope and wish that he can help you win a championship this year. And
have you been
right
surprised?
Now, he's a B-list player. Now he's like a B-list player.
That's it. Sorry for interrupting you. Are you surprised at all that with the support that he's gotten from his teammates, Especially Embiid. I mean, I would think Embiid's got to be tired of this, but he's given him all the love in the world, knowing that it could be tanking another season for him, and he's going to be 30.
I'm not surprised at all. Like I think plus is also let's be real. Nowadays, and I don't think this is in this instance with a lot of these guys. I think there's a genuine like for James. They like James, right? But a lot of times nowadays, back when Charles Barkley was playing, back when Michael Jordan, it was a different animal, right? Guys were like, if you don't want to be here, you're not a friend of mine anymore. Or I don't even want you, right? Nowadays, even if a guy doesn't want you, it's kind of like the politically correct. You know what I mean? They don't want to say anything to
because everybody shares agents and all that stuff.
Oh, and it's like you never know. Like a lot of times you hear stories about guys who want to get traded, but they don't want to. They'll say, according to sources, such and such wants to get traded, and guess what? A lot of times they're the ones who gave it to the reporter, right? But then when the other media members all ask them, they're like, "Nah, I ain't say that. I ain't say that." But because the thing is, they don't want to go back into the locker room or have to deal with the fan, the locker room and have a confrontation or have to deal with like the negativity that comes from that with the fans. So I think, times has changed. Like, James, guys like him. They like him. But at the same time, I don't think that you would hear them come out publicly and if there was any disappointment to say it. Now, I will say this about James. A guy like a PJ Tucker, he and James are friends, really good friends. Like Montrezl Harrell, very close friend. Like all these guys, they played with James. So I feel like when it comes to those type of guys, if they got to pick and choose a side, they're going to ride with James no matter what. You know what I mean? They just are. Like, and especially James took 15 million less so these guys could get paid. So that's their guy. You know what I mean? So, but nah, I'm not surprised, Mike, just because of we're in the era of political correctiveness.
Yeah.
And also something else that you said, guys share agents, they do this, not to say they have the same agents, but like the night before, they're just buddies. Like it's just a different type of thing. It's a different.
We had a question chatted in from Patrick Bernard saying, "What's up, fellas? Thoughts on Ben Simmons talking about coming home to Philly?" Did you see that quote yesterday?
Yeah, I saw it.
You think he's trolling?
You know what?
There's no way that dude wants to play in Wells Fargo Center.
Nah, I mean,
he hates Embiid.
I felt like he could have been trolling a little bit, but also you go places and you realize the grass isn't always greener. Like when he was in Philadelphia, he was an all-star. It was set up for him to be an all-star.
Yeah, it was.
He just needed to do a little bit more. He also was in Philadelphia, and they, up until the end, they allowed him to do whatever he wanted, and then they didn't, right? So I feel like then he goes to Brooklyn, and think about it, man. Like he goes to Brooklyn. The coach is criticizing him after bad performances. He's no longer closing out games. Heck, he wasn't even in a rotation before he ended his season. Like saying he was.
Nobody's calling him a treasure.
Yeah, no one's calling. Yeah, exactly. so like, yeah. I mean, again, a lot would have to happen. Like the Sixers would probably have to get rid of Daryl Morey and stuff like that, and this and that for him to come back. But I think he knows how, and he knows that it will be tough. But he also realizes I was a 3-time All-Star in Philadelphia. I was like, up next, like one of the faces of the league, and now I wasn't even in the rotation for the Brooklyn Nets at the end. So yeah, I mean, I can see what he's saying, but I don't see that ever happening.
One last one for you before we wrap it up. Mark Friedel, thank you for weighing in. Appreciate you watching.
Thanks, Mark.
One of my favorite things is watching the post game, and I love some of the back and forth you had with Doc Rivers. I know that you called out one time about Joel ducking some tougher opponents.
Yeah.
You had some good back and forth with Doc. What was that like for you to you're with that team, you're traveling with him, you're at every game, he goes at you, it's on ESPN the next day, everybody's talking about it, it's on all the call-in shows, and then you're back the next night. Do you ever does he ever pull you aside and say, all right, look, that got a little rough yesterday, or sorry about that, or do you just move on and do your thing? And how's the Nick Nurse relationship going thus far?
Well, I haven't really. I'll do the Nick Nurse first. I really, the team has been away. I took some time off. I chatted with Nick before, like when he was the Toronto coach. So I had like small conversations with him. But, I haven't really, since he's been hired, I haven't really been around him. So it's one of those things. The one thing I'll say about Doc is me and Doc, we never it was never one of those things where afterwards we sat down and chatted about it. Now, I will say that the next day when we were in New York, I did interview him, and Joel was funny. Joel being Joel, we were sitting in New Jersey.
Oh, I remember this. Yes.
And you heard about that?
I did. You keep going though. It's a great story.
And so Joel was like, yeah, give it to him again, coach. Give it to him again. So then everyone started laughing. Now, the one thing I will say about Doc Rivers though, and the thing is, there were certain times, I will say this. There were times where, I would ask him questions. He would respond the way he responded. And I would say, look, man, that's a question that needed to be asked. And he says, Keith, I know. He says, and you're going to continue to ask him. I get that. But, basically insinuating, but this is the, thing I'm going to get. So he never had a problem with me. Now, he would say stuff, but the one thing he told me, though, he said one time we were in Toronto and we were sitting down after interview. Now, he did say to me one time, he said, I have a lot of respect for you because you ask the questions, you write what you write, you say what you say, and you show up the next day. He said that goes a long way. And he says a lot of people see that. Now, the one thing that a lot of people don't know, even when me and Doc had that little back and forth after that, so I went to his hometown and I did a story on him. I did a 2-part story on him.
Chicago, right?
Chicago, yeah. So people would think Doc and Keith don't get along. Man, Doc I was over his brother's house chilling, right? The house that Doc bought for the mom. And then, the mom has since passed and the brother lives there. I was hanging out with Doc, Doc's brother, his best friend, his uncle, his cousins, meeting people who grew up with him. And the one thing, so it was here's a guy who a lot of people think can't stand me. And a lot of people think I don't like, but I'm here breaking bread with his family. And the one thing his best friend said to me, Doc likes you. I said, huh? He started laughing. He said, nah. And he says, the reason why he comes at you, and now this is his best friend. He said, the reason why he comes at you is because he knows you can handle it and it doesn't bother you. In other words, you're going to say what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. You know what I mean? He says Doc is really smart when it comes down to reading the room. You know what I mean? So it is.
That's interesting.
But
that's a great story because, if you think about the relationship, it's almost look, I know your job is to ask these questions. And if I don't shoot back at you, then my players won't think that I have their backs.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's almost like a show.
Yeah, it's like that's like Doc, because I'm gonna tell you this. Like shortly after that, I had COVID. Well, he had COVID, and so Doc gets COVID, and then after that, I get COVID. So like the joke was, man, Doc Rivers, not only did he yell at me, he gave me COVID, right? So everyone's saying that. But you know what? He reached out to me while I was sick. Like he reached out.
That's cool.
Me. So there were certain things that a lot of people didn't see. They just saw like, the sound bites between us going back and forth. But I mean, it kind of it made you feel good. Like, yo, like me and this dude, we don't always see eye to eye, but you can tell, like you said, he does stuff. I mean, Doc is smart now.
He's calculated,
and he's extremely calculated. Extreme.
He'll do a great job on ESPN for sure.
Oh, no doubt.
It'll be interesting. He did a great job on that Bill Simmons podcast where he threw James Harden under the bus and everybody. He has no problem doing that. So that's going to be interesting. Keith, I promise I asked you for a half an hour and I took 35 minutes, but I can't thank you enough. I do think you're fantastic at your job. I think we're lucky to have you in that role. And I want to thank you once again for joining the show.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you.
No, I really, really do. I think you, unlike Ben Simmons, are a treasure. So that's pretty cool. Next week on the Killin Smallz podcast, we've got Mike Sando from The Athletic. Mike has done a lot with the quarterbacks. He used to work with John Gruden's quarterback camp. We've had him on the show before. Always interesting insight. Love hearing from Mike. We'll have him next week. Thanks to our producer, Chris Dibes, Chris Dibler, but I call him Chris Dibes, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Follow Keith at Pompey on Sports on X. Got to do this now, right? For Twitter. Mm-hmm. Yes. And thanks everybody for joining. We'll see you next week.
This is Ian Rappaport from NFL Network. You're killing me, Smallz.
This is Bucky Brooks of the NFL Network. You're killing me, Smallz.
Hey, this is Chris Heck, president of the 76ers. I just want to say, you're killing me, Smallz.
Hey, this is former Sixer and Tar Heel George Lynch. Smallz, you're killing me.
Hi, this is Kenny Albert.